So in this video, we are covering 6 ways to make people like you from the classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, to be perfectly clear, you can't make people do anything. We should all realize that we cannot control other people. And for Pete's sake, we can't even really make ourselves do everything we want to do. If we ever come into a situation with a controlling attitude, like we're going to force people to do something, or make them, or get them to do it, we will fail. Because we trigger something in them that makes them want to oppose us. I mean, when we tell ourselves that we are going to force ourselves to do something, our bodies just sit there like, you want to bet? We don't actually have control over anyone. But what we do have is influence. Influence is built and developed. We must be careful not to abuse it because abuse will destroy whatever influence we had with this person. So really, this is 6 ways to influence people to like you. Hey, what's up, my people? We're here building up ourselves and each other. We refuse to conform to this world. We renew our minds and we are transformed. We are renegades because normal is just not good enough. Principle number 1. Become genuinely interested in other people. Don't focus on yourself. Focus on them. Don't try to impress people or get them interested in you. They are interested in themselves. And if you are interested in them too, well, now, obviously, you have great taste and apparently are a fantastic judge of character. We naturally like people who admire us. Publilius Cyrus, a Roman poet, once said, "We are interested in others when they are interested in us." Now, there are all kinds of reasons behind this, but even if we think that it's a negative character trait, that does not mean that it would be helpful to pick a fight with someone else's human nature. We are going to lose that battle. We should focus on our own shortcomings first. And it's definitely a good character trait to consider how we would like to be treated if we were in their shoes. And then treat them how we would like to be treated. The book says that if we want to make friends, let us put ourselves out to do things for other people. Things that require time, energy, unselfishness, and thoughtfulness. Now, that is a great principle. Actually, that is one of the 5 love languages. That would be acts of service. For some people, there's nothing more that you could do to show them you care about them than to do stuff for them. Stuff that takes your time and energy and thought. So yeah, it's a thing. And in case you were wondering, this show of interest has to be sincere. Principle number 2. Smile. Like the book says, a smile says, I like you, you make me happy, and I'm glad to see you. And really, a smile can communicate these things better than words do. But remember that the smile must be genuine. A fake smile stirs up all kinds of anxieties. They're wondering what you're really thinking, which makes them not trust you, almost as if you had lied to them. Now, apparently, we can even sense a smile over the phone. It changes the whole vibe and tenor of our words. So much so that you can tell the difference only hearing the person's voice. So a smile really seems to change the whole vibe we give off. Now, we're much more likely to succeed at anything in our lives if we are enjoying ourselves while we do it. And a smile can help us put on an attitude of enjoyment. The book records a story of a man who decided to smile more in his home. And this is what he said about it. This change of attitude of mine brought more happiness into our home in the 2 months since I started it than there was during the last year. So a smile really does change how people interact with us. Psychologist and philosopher William James said that action seems to follow feeling, but really action and feeling go together. By regulating the action, which is under the more direct control of the will, we can indirectly regulate the feeling, which is not. Now, from my observation, this idea has a limited area where it works, but it does work. For instance, we can go exercise and immediately boost our mood, but the issue with that is that when we don't feel good is always the hardest time to get up and go exercise. And also, a confident posture triggers us to feel more confident. This idea has been discussed a lot. I mean, it's even one of Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life, which is to stand up straight with your shoulders back. Now, Tony Robbins talks about power poses, where you stand and pose like a superhero for like 2 minutes and suddenly you feel better and more confident. It really does work. But it's not just that it seems like action usually follows feeling. Action naturally follows feeling. And that is the natural order. First we feel it, and then we act on it. A better way to influence our feelings is to control our thoughts. Our feelings naturally follow our thinking, which is why Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, my brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." If we can influence ourselves to think about things like this rather than negative things, then we will begin to feel good and then begin to do good. Our actions follow our feelings, and our feelings follow our thoughts. So, when we're trying to control our thoughts, do it by replacing the thought with a good and uplifting thought. And don't control your thoughts by telling yourself not to think about it. It's like me telling you to not think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't do it. All your brain wants to think about now is a pink elephant. But if instead we picture a beautiful mountain lake and smell the pine in the air and soak our bare feet in the cold mountain water, all of a sudden we're able to forget whatever it is we were thinking about. Now, Lincoln said, most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And the book tells the story. It's about a group of crippled boys that the author once met. And he was amazed at how happy and free-spirited these boys were. And their guardian told him that once the boys had processed their tragedy and accepted their fate and made peace with their new life, that they are just as happy as anyone else. Now, you may have had some lousy things happen to you, and you may have had more stuff to work through than most people do. But anyone can grow into a happy person. And from my experience, the people who have experienced real tragedy understand that principle better than most people do. Principle number 3, remember people's names. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here. I suck at remembering names. I can know the person really well, but when I need to come up with the name, I will draw a blank. I blank on my siblings' names sometimes. I catch myself calling my son by my younger brother's name all of the time. It's a whole thing. And that does not mean I get a free pass. Because I struggle with this, I have to be extra diligent with the other things to make up for it. For most people, remembering people's names is a simple and relatively easy way to build instant rapport with that person. The book says most people don't remember names for the simple reason that they don't take the time and energy necessary to concentrate and repeat and fix the names indelibly in their minds. They make excuses for them. If you can remember people's names, there is a lot of return on your investment. But whatever you do, don't call someone by the wrong name. That's nearly as bad as not trying at all. The simplest way to establish rapport with someone is to remember their name and call them by it. It's simple and it's relatively easy for most people. And it has a great payoff. The French emperor had a technique for this, and he claimed to be able to remember the name of every person he met. Number one, he made sure he actually heard it properly. And he would ask them to repeat it if he didn't. And number two, he asked about the spelling of it if it was an unusual name. Number three, he used the name several times in the conversation while trying to associate it with any memorable features or expressions that would make this person stand out. Number four, if this person was important, he would write the name down and look at it and concentrate on it. Like the book says, the name sets the individual apart. It makes him or her unique among all others. Principle number 4, become a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. People are usually very willing to talk about themselves if you ask them to. Ask questions. People will feel like you are either asking their opinion on something you've been considering, or you're asking for their expertise on something you believe they are more knowledgeable on. Either way, that will be taken as a huge compliment. Now, don't split your attention from what they are saying because you're planning what you will say next. Having to pause and think about what you will say next once it's your turn to speak doesn't make you look stupid. It shows them that you were really listening and processing what they were saying while they were talking. And that makes them feel important, which will cause them to like you more because they feel that either you like them or you respect them enough to listen to what they were saying. So like the book says, if you aspire to be a good conversationalist, be an attentive listener. To be interesting, be interested. Ask questions that the other person will enjoy answering. Encourage them to talk about themselves and their accomplishments. Remember that the people you are talking to are 100 times more interested in themselves and their wants and problems than they are in you and your problems. Think about that the next time you start a conversation. That might feel a little intense, but it is a helpful point of view. So I bought my copy of this book used, and there's a spot here where the book explains the wrong way to do all of these things. It says, never listen to anyone for long. Talk incessantly about yourself. If you have an idea while the person is talking, don't wait for him or her to finish. Just bust right in and interrupt in the middle of a sentence. And after that, it asks if we know anyone like that. And the original owner of this book highlighted here where it says that. And then she wrote Mark in all caps and underlined it. So, Mark, I don't know if you know this, but you've got some work to do. But for the rest of us, let's just try to not be the first person that comes to mind when people are trying to think of the worst listener on earth. Now on to principle number 5. Principle number 5. Talk about the other person's interests. So Teddy Roosevelt, when he was going to have a guest over, he would find some subject that he knew that person was interested in, and he would read up on it the night before so that he would be familiar with the topic. So like the book says, the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most. The book tells several stories about people who were doing business with total strangers, businessmen who were notorious for saying no and being impatient for sales pitches. So these people began by talking about things completely unrelated to what they actually wanted from these businessmen. They started by showing a genuine interest in that person and the things that interested them. And this builds rapport quickly. I mean, if nothing else, you are creating an association in their mind of you and something they really like. And this is something that I don't think the book ever actually comes out and says, but I did come to this realization while I was reading this book. And it's a good one. People won't usually remember exactly what you said to them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. If people don't remember much about you, then you didn't really make them feel much of anything. For instance, if you were trying to convince someone to try a diet that you've been on, and you tell them all of the facts, and you show them that you really know what you're talking about, and that this diet is the perfect diet for them, they can tell you that you're right, and they really should get on this diet. You made them feel that you were right. But they will still walk away after this conversation and never think about it again, because the feeling that someone else is right is not a powerful feeling, and it's not very interesting or fun to think about. So what you want them to feel is a sense of importance or hope or curiosity. Those are powerful feelings. And if you can convey those feelings, you will have substantially more influence with people than you would otherwise have. Which brings us to principle number 6. So principle number 6, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. When you try to make someone feel important, it has to come across as genuine. Appreciation has to be sincere. People are keen on spotting flattery or insincerity because it feels like you're condescending or maybe making fun of them, or maybe you're going to laugh at them behind their back. So if a compliment comes across as flattery, it will trigger distrust and anxiety in the person. And really the only way to not have that happen is to only say things that you actually feel and you actually believe. Now, everyone feels like they're important, or at the very least, they want to feel like they are. We all have feelings of insecurity and anxiety, and we wonder if we're actually good enough. Genuine appreciation eases those feelings, and people will appreciate that. We crave that. We've covered this quote from William James before, but the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. This is a universal desire, from your sweet little innocent child to the tattooed biker dude. As a matter of fact, it's likely that the desire to be seen and appreciated was the primary driving factor behind getting tattoos and a cool-looking motorcycle. In our society, I think we confuse different and special. We feel that we have to be different to be special. And being different will make you look important, and it's easy. Because if you do something that only 100 people do, then you are now in the top 100 people that do that thing automatically. The problem that I see with that is there isn't any real value in being different only for the sake of being different. But it still provides the feeling of importance that we crave. It would be better for everyone if instead we decided to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. That brings value to those around us, and therefore people will actually value us more. By doing ordinary things well that are actually useful, we are not just getting a feeling of importance, we are actually becoming important. And that's just my 2 cents worth there, so you're welcome. So now, let's remember the golden rule that Jesus taught. Do to others what you would have them do to you. Really, that is the foundation of this entire book. It's studying our own nature and coming to understand how we would like to be treated, and then treating other people that way, which is something I think every Christian should be doing. It's a big deal. That's why I think that even though some of these specific things may not be in the Bible, there is still spiritual value in learning and applying these principles, because what we are really doing is working out practical ways to apply one of Christ's most important teachings. Now, if you have some compelling question or observations on this subject, put it down in the comments. I read all of them. And if you leave a really compelling idea in the comments, I will make a short video about it. And I think we're going to get serious value with renegades like us discussing useful ideas in good faith with an attitude of edification and the desire to build one another up. So now let's recap. Principle 1, become genuinely interested in people. Principle number 2, smile. Principle number 3, remember people's names. Principle number 4, be a good listener. Principle number 5, talk about other people's interests. Principle number 6, sincerely make the other person feel important. So, next week we will cover the next portion of the book, which is 12 principles to win people to your way of thinking. Renegade out.